Testing, testing. One, two, three. All right, people. We are back in the proverbial YouTube building after a brief hiatus. This episode is an interview with my boy Edmund J. Wilson. He's a self taught musician and a Cambridge educated political commentator. His takes are a bit unconventional, but we like that over here. A smart kid with a lot to say, and I think he brings a bit of sense making to what some can feel is a joke, right? Kanye West, president. Yes. As you may know, I've been heavy on the Ye for office wave since the run up to 2020. In my humble opinion, he's the only person today at that level with the balls to tell the truth. Unapologetically, I might add. So in this conversation, Edmund and I flesh out the feasibility of a Ye run in 2024, speaking on some of the political hurdles that may come with being a cultural icon alongside a political candidate, while also managing to cover some of the more interesting forms his campaign could take in the coming months with folks like Nick Fuentes, Milo Yiannopoulos, etc., etc. But if you didn't already know, Yeezy season is fast approaching. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Untitled podcast. With me, your host, Sunny. Also, leave a like or comment if you're feeling it. I appreciate that. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's get into it. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode / interview / conversation. I'm your host, Sunny, and today we're going to be talking about more Ye24. A couple weeks ago, I spoke with a friend about some of the cultural aspects, some of the maybe more interpersonal aspects of the Ye campaign and how it could flourish. Today, I want to speak with a brilliant young dude. He's from London. His name is Edmund Wilson. He's a musician. He's a political commentator. He is soon to be working on the Ye campaign. We're going to manifest that right now. He's somebody I think that you should listen to in terms of what the future could look like in terms of politics, in terms of culture, in terms of how we move out of this crazy period that we're in today. So first, I'm gonna just let you kind of introduce yourself. What are you interested in with the Ye campaign? Why do you feel like this is the time for this campaign?
Yeah. Well, I think that we're at a kind of turning point in not just in kind of politics, but kind of in world history. I think we were at a turning point about 7 years ago when there were big political changes in the UK and the US. So in 2015, Trump announced he was running. In 2016, against everyone's expectations, he won. Also in 2016, Brexit happened in the UK. A majority of the British people voted to leave the European Union. You also had the candidacies of Jeremy Corbyn in the UK and Bernie Sanders in the US, challenging the establishment on economics. So you had this political challenge from the right, Brexit and Trump, and this economic challenge from the left, Bernie and Corbyn. But then in, I think, 2019, 2020, things changed a little bit, and the changes that a lot of people hoped for didn't happen. So yeah, Trump was voted out of office. Bernie and Corbyn failed to win elections. And with coronavirus and lockdowns, it has seemed a bit hopeless for anyone trying to challenge the establishment, because it seems that the network of elite money and power is really quite strong, and that capitalism is really
Yeah,
quite consolidated, and it's really hard to get anything positive done because anything we do will be reversed. But I think the consequence of lockdowns and the consequence of the failure of kind of right wing and left wing challenges to the establishment in the late 2010s, after the kind of brief successes of 2016, 2017, where the left nearly got economic reforms passed by winning power and the right actually succeeded in a couple of political victories. I think now we're at another turning point where people are frustrated again that nothing's getting done, that the centre isn't getting anything passed that's helping anyone, is instead just wanting to kind of use the cultural left as a battering ram to call everyone a Nazi and to censor people's freedom of speech. So, I
yeah,
mean, basically, I think this is why the cultural right is now is now back in vogue. And my worry, I
Yeah.
guess, is that the right, like the left, becomes this kind of culture war movement. So the left, with Bernie and Corbyn, they were kind of really focused on economics, but then as their campaigns went along, they had to draw kind of on young people more, and also on the kind of university educated. And sadly, a lot of people who go to university come out with these kind of ideas about woke liberalism that they think will help the world and change the world, but certainly change the world, but just not for the better. And so I think
Yeah.
that the right has to avoid that. And with the A campaign, I want to, even though I believe that the right is right to resist the kind of left wing woke extremism, there's also a risk that we become caught in a culture war that never ends. And so
Mhm.
I uh I kind of want to bring focus back to the economics and the politics that I believe can ensure a victory bigger than what Brexit, Trump, Bernie, or Corbyn represented. And I think Ye could be that candidate. And so I really am keen on seeing if there's any way of him running for president and winning political power, because that
But
would
why do
be
you?
awesome.
I think so too. But as somebody you're a young white dude from England, how do you have like what is your connection to Ye, and how do you? I guess in a way. So on the Spaces yesterday on Twitter, I was listening to you speak about like just a crazy, um, I don't know, disparate. Why is the word not coming to me? Topics and
Yeah,
your ability to connect these things under this banner of okay, Trump was 2016, yay, we kind of have to think differently. I guess
mm,
my question is in terms of the percentage chance of a yay success rate. I
yeah.
know in 2015, a lot of people were saying Trump had zero chance. So, what do you think in terms of how do we um, kind of parlay that information into what we have now, and then how can we move into a place that is because you say that you want to bring policy back into the Ye campaign or
Yeah.
to the forefront of the campaign, but we have to understand that Ye is a cultural icon, so being able
Mm.
to sort of parse those things could be kind of difficult, and to get people to think of him as a serious political candidate instead of just as a rapper or entertainer could be difficult. So I want to know what your thoughts are on that and how you kind of see Ye in your context and what you think of him as a political mind and maybe a little bit as an entertainer too.
Sure thing. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, in recent years, a lot of my focus has been on politics. And at uni, my focus, I did a politics degree for 3 years and a history master's for 1 year at Cambridge. And so my focus has been politics for a long time. But I've kind of been swinging more to music recently and releasing music of my own. And so and one of the background to that is listening to new music, like the music of Billie Eilish, Kanye West, Michael Jackson, um, and I think that Ye changed music quite a lot. And the thing about the way he changed music is that he kind of defied expectations. People said he was just a producer. If you look at the Genius documentary
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Ye on Netflix, but he was a rapper too, and people really kind of mistreated him, like how these clothing companies were mistreating him last year. And that's the background to all of this. The way his contracts in music and fashion were really exploitative. I mean, we see that. I mean, I'm talking now about. I think this happens throughout the music industry. I've kind of trying to link, as well as linking up Ye's presidential campaign to other campaigns like the campaign of Aaron Day, who's protesting central bank digital currencies. I've also linked it up to, like, say the Lisa fan base from Blackpink, because I think Lisa is being exploited by her contract with YG in Blackpink. So I think the thing about Ye is that Ye is a symbol across music and politics and
It's like a
fashion.
proxy battle for everything in a way.
Yeah, yeah,
It
he's
almost
a
feels like he's maybe not a proxy, but it almost feels like it's representative of a bigger issue. Like he's the lightning rod, right? But as this figure, he can bring awareness to so many things. Like when he
Yeah.
speaks, it's like he's speaking to um, start a global conversation and to get folks to start thinking about things in a new way, not necessarily to over explain and to break down. I think that when that's where sort of campaign managers would come in, the nuance of the policies and those types of things. But in terms of a leader with vision who can get folks on the same page, personally, I don't see anybody outside of Ye that's really got that sort of clout. But again, I'm somebody who's a bit of a cynic too in terms of American politics. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to say on that one, but I had a couple other questions. If you
Sure. Yeah.
did,
I
go
think
ahead.
he's got to win the GOP. That's my
Okay,
view. I think the Democrats are so
so no third party.
yeah, not third party.
Okay,
I know the conventional view in the wider kind of fan base and people who support Ye. No, there was okay. I mean, one complication to all of this is there's been two different political leaders of Ye24. There was Nick Fuentes, and now there's Milo Yiannopoulos. And I heard that Nick was more keen on running in the GOP. That I might be wrong on that, and Milo's more keen on running independent. Now I think Nick is right that yeah, he should run in the GOP, but not under any of the kind of politics that Nick really represents. Because the thing is that I think Nick has got caught up in the culture war, and
yeah,
if Ye is the Bernie of the political right today, I think it's possible that someone like Nick is a bit more like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for Bernie, who's kind of took the left towards a culture war direction, and similarly, something like Liz Warren took Bernie's left towards a more kind of policy wonk direction without any real like political muscle. And it's possible that's what Milo Yiannopoulos represents, but we don't really know what his policies are. I just know that the campaign is a bit more open to policies. And my concern is that, I think in some ways Milo is stepping things in the right direction, but to really lift off, we have to take a leap into the unknown. And I think that does mean drawing on all of the different aspects of Ye24, the aspects of Nick's movement and Milo's campaign. And I think that means having kind of conservative rhetoric that can appeal to GOP voters, but also a kind of economic leftism that can both appeal to GOP voters and win the general.
I want to hold
And
you on that one
with the
real
culture
quick
war.
because this is actually a
Yeah, yeah,
really interesting point that you talk about with culturally the right is kind of in right standing, for
yeah,
lack of a better way to put it. They
yeah,
have the upper hand.
yeah,
Most people now are realizing that this kind of agenda to, transify kids is not necessarily something that they want to get behind. And so they
yeah.
are starting to recognize that, okay, there is another way. But pairing that with the policies that are more leftist, how is that messaging, how is that practically going to come together to have a sort of conservative cultural stance and then a more liberal economic or political stance? How would you see that coming together?
Yeah, it's quite difficult because the left does talk about kind of economics and yeah, kind of criticizing neoliberalism, and it's done that for a while. But I think that we've seen how it's been corrupted. Their economic leftism was tied to a kind of social liberalism that really just corrupted and watered it down. I think social conservatism is much more compatible with economic leftism than social liberalism is. So I think the right is in an ideal position to do this. So that's a good thing. Sadly, we have a situation where yeah, I'm not sure if that's coming to fruition. I've not heard anyone in the A campaign say the words Medicare for all.
Mm,
I've not heard anyone in the A campaign really talk about what they're going to do policy wise. And most worrying of all, Nick and others in the A campaign defend China. Now, this isn't one of Bernie's issues, but one of Trump's big issues was containing China. So I'm a bit of a Marxist about economics, but I'm a realist about geopolitics. I think that
yeah, I
whenever
like
you
that.
get a rising power, be it
Okay.
Germany in the early 20th century or China today, that usually leads to war. And that's why John Mersheimer, the person who wrote the book The Israel Lobby, which inspires much of Nick's thinking, it is someone who also has said that China cannot rise peacefully, and that the rise of China is going to lead to war with the West. And the only way of stopping that is to stop China's economic rise. So he advocates a kind of policy of containing China, just as America contained the Soviet Union. And so Ye is the only person who's actually called on people to do something about this. Because in December, in his Clubhouse interview, he said his first executive order would be dropping China's most favored nation status on the World Trade Organization, basically kicking China out of the WTO. That is pretty astonishing. He also says bring Christ to China, which is a really, that is actually quite a deep thought.
Mhm.
And
That
he
is a deep thought.
basically, yeah, I think that the problem is that Nick and others in the associated with the Ye24 are kind of defending China and saying that China isn't the real problem, Israel is. But there are a lot of similarities between how brutal the Chinese and Israeli governments are towards Muslim minorities. China
Absolutely.
is, I believe, the biggest issue right now, and Ye tried to explain how China kind of uses woke, uses minorities to deceive the West, and benefits from this kind of discourse. So basically, by tracing a lot of the issues of our time, woke totalitarianism, to what I call kind of Chinese capitalism, I think we can try to build a case for a kind
Mhm.
of Christian communism with the Ye presidency. And I know that's not what anybody wants to hear. The mainstream doesn't want to hear it. They don't want anything to do with Christ.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't believe the right wants to hear anything to do
But
with the
maybe
left
that
right
could
now.
be the bridge, though. That could be the bridge.
Yeah.
Because I think that the way forward, man, and I do believe that Ye has a chance, but I do also believe that the messaging has to be on point because people,
Mm,
in a way, they have like already built up these walls around ideas in their heads. And the only way to sort of hopscotch those is to, in my opinion, for people to trust you. And there has to be a sort of, um, I think a lot of what the media does intentionally is almost like wedges distrust into the Ye story, into the Ye narrative. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. Oh, he's this.
yeah.
And that prevents his message from even getting to where it needs to get to. Obviously, people who can see through that can still pick up the nuggets, but for the general population, they just kind of see him as, a crazy guy who is not really on his job right now or whatever he's doing with his ex-wife and this and that and the third. And so I just feel like in this day and age, with the technology we have accessible to us, with the tools we have, like maybe there's a way to combine those things like Christian communism. That sounds like that's a that's a mouthful. That's something that you'd have to sit and think about. But I think when you do sit and think about it, there's some legs there. There's something there. Like Jesus's original mission, it looked similar in a way to like the original church was like they call it the ecclesia. It's almost like a joint body of people having everyone had political power. It wasn't one professional Christian in the front speaking to a bunch of people in pews. It was a
Yeah.
collective effort. And I feel like we could get back to something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think Jesus' message was in some ways social conservatism and economic communism, which is just what I'm
Mm-hmm.
advocating today. They could kind of and I kind of also, I mean, the left is very angry about this because there's actually some talk about this now. Apparently, my message is getting out. Jacobin, a magazine which loosely supported Bernie, but also supported the left-wing cultural stuff, which destroyed his economic message,
Yeah.
right, recently said there's no such thing as right wing Marxism. So they're trying to say there's no such thing as right wing Marxism, and it's a very, very bad thing. It's make
Yeah.
up your mind.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
criticize something that doesn't exist, and it does exist. And I'm one of the right wing Marxists. I mean, I was never really a. I mean, actually, Lenin wrote this thing, left wing communism and infantile disorder. So we
Wow.
already have Marxists in the past criticizing the left. And
Yeah.
I just think the logical implication of all this is just having conservative rhetoric and left-wing economics and a kind of realist
Love it.
geopolitics. What we do about
Yeah.
you raised the point about structure, about how we structure the institution. Is it more kind of bottom up or is it top down? I think it's got to be a bit of both. Like we do have to have some organization, some kind of coherent organization where yeah, you can make
Yeah.
decisions and the decisions can be followed. But we also need lots of grassroots funding, bottom up organization in order to get Ye on the debate stage. And that's something I was talking to someone in the Henry Jackson Society, a right-leaning think tank at the National Conservatism Conference in the UK a few weeks ago, about how Ye can try to mobilize grassroots support in order to draw on how Bernie did so well in challenging Hillary back in 2016, as well as using kind of Trump's forthright rhetoric. And that's I don't want Ye to be tame. I don't want Ye to have to
No
hold back.
calm yet.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is,
Yeah.
when Ye isn't calm, he upsets everyone. And I remember in November, December, how everyone abandoned Ye. And I watched this happen, and I was saying, I actually said, oh, he's going to be president now. You realize this because he's got the bravery. He's got the bravery to take a stand. I'm not
Yeah.
like the people who say like Ye. I mean, I think Ye was led down a path that led him to being cancelled, but he took that step because he knew ultimately, if I take this step, then it's both the right thing to do, and there might be a chance that it could lead somewhere better. And it is leading somewhere better. Now people like Roseanne Barr are echoing what Ye said back in November, December, challenging the kind of woke liberal history talking points. And that's really good. All we need now is the politics and the economics.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
quite a lot. And
I love it. But this idea, though, and I think we can maybe start to land here, is this concept of having a conservative Marxism. It almost expands the attack vector that you can now go to the left with, because they have for so long been trained to just see MAGA, Trump, this bad, bad, bad. And if you can kind of slide into a different logical, I don't know how to put it, but you can almost like hopscotch what they initially thought of you, and you can get into another sense of maybe a good faith debate where you can say, oh, look, maybe we actually have more in common. And
yeah,
from there, potentially bring people into a space of self rule, self understanding, but then also having a better handle on what it could look like to have a conservative culture with the economic policies that would still help lift us all.
yes.
I think, as Jordan Peterson said, this is like the idea of having, um, like conservatism and liberalism in their ideal form would be,
Mm,
conservatives conserving the best parts of the culture, and liberals helping free us into the future visions of our culture. And that tension is where we can kind of live and debate and figure out what's actually the best. And I believed that for a while, but I'm starting to think that it's even more nuanced than that, and there is a
mhm.
bit
Yeah.
more overlap than just this binary thing. And so, yeah, I love what Ye is standing for. I've always been a fan musically, obviously, but since I think it was probably 2019, maybe it was 2018, when the for me, the moment that really clicked for me was when they told, was it Judge Gorsuch, or no, I forget who was getting kind of ran through the mud in the he was supposed to get appointed for the US Supreme Court, and all of a sudden you had like 30 women come out and say that this dude raped me. And it was at the height of the Me Too movement. And it was one of those moments where I started to understand that there is a concerted effort to make certain voices higher and certain ones lower.
Yeah.
And when you start to see things, it's hard to unsee them, because you start to notice how everything feels like it's manipulated in some way. And
Mhm.
I'm not a
Mhm.
Cambridge graduate, so I try not to think about these things too much, but I can't help but think about them sometimes. And so it was really beautiful to meet somebody like you, who's, at least it seems like you've somewhat built out a framework for what could be. And I think that that's really important when we think about the future. It's important not to get so captured by what is negative now. And I think you spoke on this in terms of trying to get out of the culture wars, is that when you
Yeah.
focus on something, you almost become that thing. It's like when you're driving and you see an accident on the side of the road, and then you crash into it. Like you almost want to sidestep that by focusing on creating something new instead of destroying something bad. Um,
Exactly.
but anyway, I'll leave with this one. Can you maybe give us a little bit of what you're working on right now, and then where people can follow you online in terms of maybe Twitter, YouTube. I know you have a podcast as well called Future Politics, so you can just give people a little bit of information on that. And thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so I have a Substack, edmundjwilson.substack.com. I have a blog, edmundjwilson.com. I have a Linktree link to all of my kind of all of my music out there on Spotify and Apple Music. Yes, I'm a musician as well. It's the thing is, but I still do politics, and the politics is yay. Um, so yeah, I Edmund J. Wilson is my social media handle on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and yeah, I go under the name Ed Wilson for my music too.
Okay,
One of my latest songs is called "Christ is King," so there's a bit of a bridge between Ye24 and my music now.
beautiful.
Um, but yeah,
It's dope stuff,
I
man.
yeah, I look
That's dope
forward to
stuff. And I'm actually trying to start my music too. It's kind of fun. I can see your kind of your mic in the side there, and mine is over here too.
seeing.
I'm starting to
Yeah,
get more into my bag with things. I actually have a meeting in a few hours with some folks in Nottingham who are trying to start this like Midlands hip hop collective type thing. And so um
yeah.
we're definitely gonna keep crossing paths in the future. I don't see that stopping. But much love to you. Thank you again for giving me some time today. Everybody make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and go and follow my guy on all his socials. Check out his music, give some feedback. Um, in the meantime, we'll see. Wait until the next interview. Pro Ye24. Let's do this thing. Much love.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
I always forget how to stop the recording.